it's Red Sphere here. Just making a video on tips that yeah, we have in terms of surviving with TBMC. So um no, first thing to note is this is a list. This is simply a list of tips that have helped us. Um, they may or may not be relevant and helpful to a given system. So although we do recommend them, obviously, they've been helpful to us. We also recommend taking due caution around taking tips from anyone, including us, obviously, and being essentially being cautious with um, who you listen to regarding TBMC stuff, just in general. Anyway, on to the first tip. Finding a way to spend energy. So obviously this can be anything. Yeah. So more examples would be a job, a hobby, healing, etc., etc. Doesn't have to be any of those. Those are just things that we've found are ways to spend energy. And found is that something with external responsibility, it's easier to basically push to get that energy spent. Uh, and obviously, some things though will be easier in terms of finding more productive for healing, for example. But essentially, the idea behind it is that you as a system have limited energy essentially every day. There's a certain amount of energy that can be spent on anything and everything in a given day, right? And that what this comes down to essentially is that the more of that energy you spend on something that is in some way not that, the more of that energy you deliberately spend in some way, the less of that energy is available to those still in the system who haven't been deprogrammed and would want to cause harm in some way. That's the basic idea here. And yeah, so that's the basic idea of this. Obviously, it's not perfect, but that's the basic idea of it. And yeah, so that's the idea there. The next one is headphones or earbuds. These are a useful and generally somewhat socially acceptable way to reduce the risk of audio cues and triggers. And they allow the consumption of various media, which, while well curated, can provide you with something that's grounding, some useful information, or just pure entertainment, all of which have their value. So it can be helpful in that sense as well. Yeah. Okay. Another thing that we would recommend is being cautious with social media. This is useful because a lot of social media is they can act as a way for perpetrators to get in touch, and they can also you know be a way for misinformation to spread, and you might pick up misinformation from them. um and yeah, that can be unhelpful obviously in various ways. So uh, there's that, and obviously there's a reasonable risk of various cues and triggers being around and it being difficult to avoid them. So yeah, generally find it useful to be cautious around social media. It's not necessarily a stay off of it, but just be cautious around it. Another thing is being finding some form of artistic release. So art in some form or another. It gives a space for emotions to be processed that's relatively safe. Obviously, not saying go do art therapy, right? I'm just saying, that some form of artistic release is helpful. And we're not saying that everything that you create has to in some way be healing. Um, you know, just all we're trying to pass on is that creating can provide an opportunity for healing and an opportunity for self-expression, which are both helpful. It can also just be a fun hobby. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. But yeah, that's the basic idea there. And the final tip really is being patient. So this comes down to the fact that there can be patience with the healing process and allowing for the and keep in mind that things may well be layered, and as such, they might have to be repeated, essentially. Yeah, and that's the main things there. But yeah, essentially, rushing through things runs a high risk of overwhelming yourselves. It's simply just from uncovering memories and them being distressing, as well as, of course, by rushing, you reduce the capability to avoid traps which can be in place to prevent healing. So, obviously, going slowly helps with that. Yeah, and obviously, sometimes work needs to be done fast for safety reasons, but where that's not the case, it's worth approaching it more slowly, at least in our opinion, as that allows for a safer and more thorough approach. But of course, much like all the other tips, mileage may vary, so take what you will from that and all the rest of the tips. Feel free to share tips of your own in the comments. Yeah, we, you know, but do be careful with that, obviously, and we will be policing them. So yeah, yeah, you know, there you go. Cool. This system signing out. Hope to catch you all next week. Please do remember to like, subscribe, comment, especially if you've got any questions you want answered. Be happy to answer them either in the comments or in another video. So catch you all next week.